my thoughts for today, and I love when we start like that because the thoughts for today didn't only come today. They came weeks ago, so I have to be honest about that. I was reading a book that brought the word mana in, M-A-N-A. And I heard the word and I said, I think I've thought about what this word has meant in the past, but I don't know that I ever really delved into it. And the book didn't give me a clear appreciation of what it was trying to say about mana. So I started going into a little bit of detail. And as I always say, for a person who's not tech savvy at all, and everybody who knows me knows that, I do love to Google. That is my favorite thing in the world. So I Googled mana, and it came up with a whole bunch of different things. And I'll take you through its journey because it's kind of funny in a way. But the word mana comes from the Polynesian, and I believe it's Polynesian and Malaysian background, many hundreds of years ago, and continues in Hawaii with the same, type of sense of the word itself and what it means. And mana actually means spiritual, life force, energy, and healing power. Now, when I was reading the book, that was not evident, but I knew it was of some importance because you know how it's italic, what is it, italicized or something like that. So I'm like, okay, this is important. We need to figure this out. So in reading about it, in the culture, the Polynesian culture, it is either can be supernatural, it can be magical. For our intents and purposes, we're sticking with this spiritual connection to that. And in saying that, it tells you that an inanimate object can have mana. The land can have mana. Humans can have mana. The thing about, we always go back to humans and how we are and how we react and interact with each other. Mana in a human, you can have it, you can increase it, you can lose it by your action or inactions. So it's that energy where they say it could be good, and then the opposite of good is, and I don't like to use that word because I don't like to believe in, and I hope everybody knows what I'm referring to, good. And so I didn't want to stick with that. So for me, I wanted to take it from a very positive standpoint of what mana means and how it connects with all of us. As humans, again, it's our actions, our reactions, our interactions with people. So we want to stay in our best state of being, which we talk about this with just our consciousness. I know all of the people who have done talks and different inspirational readings, it's about our consciousness. But in going on to further explore mana, you start to realize that the word is now being taken and used for everything. You Google mana hoping to find the whole spiritual sense of what mana is, only to find energy drinks that are called mana. And I'm like, okay, this is not what I'm looking for. I want this spiritual connection to mana. So then a little bit more Google, and it comes up with a rock pop group that's a Mexican pop group called mana. And I just was like, oh, this is not what I'm going for. And I bypassed that, okay? So continuing with, okay, what is the true sense of this? How do we capture it? How do we keep it? How do we pass it on? You start hearing about a man, meaning male, female, human, with mana can raise to their highest heights and really continue to let that mana take them to the top of their best self. But it's only with having that happen where you can reach these highest heights that it's because of the gift of mana that you have gotten to that point. And so it's like a reverse. I raised you to the highest heights because you have mana, and your gift of mana is what has brought you full circle. So I found that to be very interesting. When I started to go into examples of mana, and I was now past Google, but onto YouTube. But this was becoming a good journey for me. Let's learn a little bit more about mana. There was a gentleman who I believe was a farmer in Hawaii who talked about what he believed mana to be. So everybody has a different opinion of what mana is, and it becomes personal because what I learned is mana is intentional. Whether it's in an object, whether it's in the land, or whether it's in a human, it is intentional. You must have the intention to have this higher healing energy. So this one farmer describes mana for him as when he plants a seed and he first sees the seed come through the ground, the power of that coming and just emerging through the ground. And that is what he considered his first evidence of mana. The second example was of a baby being born and emerging into the world. He considered to also be mana, because it was that energy and that magical feeling of creation. So that was his second thing. The third example was of him talking about how any one of us could be without food, without water, without shelter. And if somebody came up to us and provided us with any one of those things, knowing the state that we were in, that we needed assistance, that we needed help, that would also be considered mana. Now, again, these are his examples. These are his opinions of mana. So I thought that was, something that I understood. Those are all brand new things emerging. So I felt that to be something I could resonate with. The next person who spoke about mana was an archaeologist who had been working in that field of archaeology for 25 years or more. And I don't even know where he was doing his digs. But he talked about, as he first started his journey, he realized that there was danger in his job, that there could be very real danger. There could be a lot of difficult things that might go on upon that archaeological dig. And so he decided that what brought him comfort was to bring a Van Halen tape with him, because he loved Van Halen, and there was a 1984 album, which maybe some of you know, I was not a big Van Halen fan. So that he brought along with him. And he talks about the journey, how when he first brought this tape along, it was in a Walkman. Now remember the journey of 20 some odd years. It was in a Walkman. So he popped the tape in, he listened to it, he felt it provided him with focus. He felt it kept him on his journey, not thinking about what external things could affect him. As years went on, Walkmen are now gone and CD players come in. So again, he goes and he gets the CD and he listens to it, and he still feels that energy, that protective, healing power that's going to keep him safe on this archaeological dig. And he said, and that worked greatly for him. He just went from one type of media to the next one. Then years went on, it became the iPad. Then he had to try to figure out how to get this music on the iPad. As time went on, that became what he considered to be his mana, which was his life force and healing power that kept him going, so that fear did not enter into his journey. As years went on, it became more what was on our cell phone. And now he said each time he had to figure out how to get that on to the next piece of equipment he was going to use and take on this dig with him. Finally, he said the energy of mana, the focus of mana for him, led him to the point that he didn't even have to bring it with him anymore. All he had to do was focus in on what that Van Halen 1984 album meant to him, and he would see in his place of mana, life force, energy, healing powers. So I found that to be very interesting, because I'm thinking, well, Van Halen would definitely not be my place of finding mana or nirvana or anything else, but it worked for him. So that seemed to be very, very important. So there were separate different stories of what people think of mana. And I started to think of what mana meant to me. And I'm going to come around again with some other thoughts about it. But I thought on a personal level, because it's called an intentional energy. So I thought about it and I said, going for my walk in nature is certainly my mana. I feel the life force from that. I feel the protective energy for me. I feel the healing. My friend Pat in the back, as I go off to Florida, even when I'm here, sends me the most beautiful handmade cards, and I know she does that for other people as well. And as I sit in Florida, and sometimes I'm in my blue mood for missing all of you, I open those cards and I find my life force again. And I know that that is, again, my mana. A couple of months ago, our lovely friend Jeanette, who unfortunately is not here today through an unfortunate accident to her ankle, but we're sending our best wishes to her, ended up giving me, and I think she gave to other people as well, this beautiful jade. I chose the jade, as a matter of fact. She had a couple of them, but this jade heart. I hope everybody can see it. And over the last couple of months since she gave it to me, I do use objects because I talked about mana being in inanimate objects as well. But I do use objects to help me through and lift my spirit, to give me energy, to give me more of the life force. And I have taken this with me many places. Recently to a periodontist visit where my periodontist thought that I should be calmer and take yoga classes. And I told her it didn't matter how much yoga classes I took. When I get in her skin, I am not going to be in a state of yoga experiences or calmness. But I took this with me to help me get through that energy, that period of time, to raise my energy. So again, this became my mana. And when I started looking up, nothing is ever without full circle, as we say, or without ever purpose. When I started looking up what jade is through your heart chakra, it's your heart connection. And it helps with depression, it helps with anxiety. So no wonder it came with me to the periodontist's office. It does a lot to help you to open up your heart. So then I started thinking about, well, where does jade come from? And I started reading about this Maori tribe or indigenous people who turned out to be the Polynesian people who first came to New Zealand. And this is back in the 1700s. And New Zealand seemed to, at points, have the largest amount of, these indigenous people, these Polynesian people. And they talked about jade, and they said jade is its most powerful when given from one person to the other, because people were asking, well, does the power of jade work even if you buy it for yourself? But these Maori, indigenous people said, yes, but when given to someone else, the power of jade is the strongest spiritual connection. So now I really found myself laughing and thinking, well, that's interesting. I really have come full circle with this. I started out with mana. I've gotten to learn about the different indigenous tribes, the Polynesians, the Malaysians, their connection to different stones, and it's bringing me all in that direction. So I started to realize that mana really is different. I mean, although we've been given the definition of this spiritual life force and power and healing abilities, mana is really different for everybody. And so whatever works for you to raise your life force energy, to make you know that you have healing power with you, it can be an object. It can be another human's connection to you. It can be the land that you walk on as you go through a hiking area. As long as you understand that it raises you and lifts your spirit and helps you on your journey. So finally, with that thought, I'm doing a little bit more back to Google now, and I come across a story that's called On the Road to Mana. And it's by a Kimberly Kelly, her name is. And she is an anesthesiologist. Many years ago, that was her beginning. And she is an entrepreneur. She is a acupuncturist. So she has a lot under her belt. And she started, it is small town in the United States. And I know Hawaii is in the United States, so you don't have to think I don't know that. But she ended up taking her journey over to Hawaii because she wanted to understand the healing properties and the healing abilities of mana and to help people heal. And so that became where she started a center called the Core Wellness Center. And I believe it's in Oahu, Hawaii. And if any of you have been to Hawaii, I mean, just being in that area on any of the islands is enough to bring you back to a state of, if you want to say mana, your highest spiritual self and healing inside of you. So she created this book, On the Road to Mana. I have not read it because I know I always give book reviews. I did not read it, but I came across it, and it is a story. It's a fictional story, but it's based on her experiences of starting this wellness center and trying to help people connect with mana and their wellness and their healing abilities. And so because of this exploration of mana, I now know I want to read that book. And knowing my husband, that will be a book that'll appear for me because he always does after me, buys me this great book that I need to read. So all I wanted to bring to you at this point is you now know what mana means from the Polynesian, Malaysian history of it. But we know that it's real. We know that we have these healing powers to help ourselves, to help other people. We know that we are a life force. All of us are a life force. We're a life force for each other. As I see these three friends that are connected at the hip in a loving way in the middle of this congregation. We are all life force for each other. So please find what mana means to you. And if it's an object, if it's a person, if it's a journey by foot on land, take it, embrace it. When I finally came to the end of this, and I realized that I really was so glad I took this one word and ran with it, I decided I should give some credit to also that little Mexican pop group that, you know, had me going, no, not you, no, not you, as I was looking for the true sense of what mana as a spiritual, you know, connection is. And I looked up this group, and they started back probably in around the mid-'80s. And in 1985, they were under a different name, but they ended up taking a new person into their group. And when they took that person into their group, they wanted to re-emerge to become healing, to become the healing power through their music, their Latin music. So I know it's probably very, you know, uplifting and everything else, but they wanted to portray that healing power, that uplifting energy. And that's why they named themselves Mana. And they took it because they knew mana in Polynesian meant healing power. So as much as I wanted to ignore the pop group, it came full circle again that I needed to know why they named themselves that. And it was with the loving connection that all of us need to have that healing power, that healing energy. If you're a rock group, you probably want to put that energy out there and lift people's spirits. No matter how you want to do it, it's something that we all need to embrace. So I just wanted to bring that to you, that some of you have probably heard of mana before. Most of the time when I bring things to people, I think, well, they know far more about it than I do. But it was an interesting journey for me. And I just wanted to bring that to all of you and leave that with you, and hope that whatever it is, through land, through people, or through objects, that you find your mana and it keeps your life force going. And I thank you very much.